Hi there, I have an amazing tactical game to show you today. This is Jobava playing against Ehlvest in the Aeroflot Open 2007. So it kicked off with e4 and we have a Sicilian defence and now an unusual knight e2. This could have the possibility of misstepping the opponent. They played e6, Jobava plays knight bc3 and we have a closed Sicilian defence position now by transposition. So here d3, knight c6, h3, h6, f4. This is often one of my most favourite formations myself when playing white. It seems an easy to play kind of style, expanding on the king side later, good attacking prospects. So here we see d5, black logically countering in the centre. g4, we see d4, and now e5. This seems to be a very important move here. If knight b1, maybe black is doing absolutely fine after e5. Any attempt to play f5 is going to be bad, but for the moment let's have a look at knight f3. This is just even, but if f5, it seems black can play knight h7 and get a real grip on these dark squares. For example, this is going to be a position which black is really comfortable in. There's no real prospects. The bishop and queen seem to be safeguarding white's potential to go forward on the king side. So this e5 changes the imbalances quite drastically in the position. We have d takes, e takes, bishop takes, b takes. So white has this semi-open b file. That pressure, the bishop is opened up, no pawn in the way. e4 can be used. There is the double pawns, but this often gives very interesting dynamic play, having double pawns. It's a classic trade-off between piece activity and structure. We see queen c7, rook b1, black castles, bishop e3. Now knight e7, so that protects that pawn. c4, this controls the d5 square. Knight g6, and it looks as though the knight could be annoying. Is it coming into h4 to be super annoying, and maybe black can do something like this later to expose these light square weaknesses? We see bishop e4 ahead of that knight, jumping to h4, rook e8. So black is not too worried about bishop takes g6. This would leave the white king kind of bare on the light squares. So we see queen d2 here, knight h4, and now king h1, rook b8, and now bishop f2, trying to discourage this knight a little bit, especially after this next move, queen e1, creating that battery, the common square h4. Black now doesn't go back. Black plays f5. So this is a game where both sides refuse to listen to each other's threats obediently. Instead of going back, well, if knight g6, there was f5, and this would be quite comfortable for white. For example, like this, with bishop g3, it should be quite nice for white. So we see this f5 instead. Bishop takes, f takes, d takes, and now, yeah, the structure's been a bit wrecked here. Has white pushed the structural aspects a bit too far after queen c6, knight c3? It looks as though, hold on a sec, this looks quite menacing. This is a bishop without a counterpart. Black is surely stronger on the light squares, especially with b4 coming in. This whole diagonal seems potentially in danger. If black had played, by the way, bishop takes h4 instead, and b5, it seems white has time for g5 here. If b4, g takes, believe it or not, and the g file comes alive here in this position. It is very, very dangerous. Just in time, before any collapse of e4, there's a kingside attack brewing with a big advantage to white crashing through. So b5 was played, and we have f5, b4, but this pawn is pinned. Is it really threatening the knight? It is actually pinned to b8 right now. So white actually plays f6, ignoring that. It's not really a threat at the moment. G takes, and this fractures black's pawns now. So both sides trying to do some damage structurally as well. So if b takes c3, simply just f7 and then taking here is the most accurate. That would be crushing. So black dare not give up b8. There's no backfire here. So we see g takes f6. And now queen e3. This is a very logical move, tapping into that kind of weakness of the last move. The pawn no longer supporting h6. And now a very delicate king h7. It turns out here, if king g7, can you see what white could play, which is quite a crushing little combination in its own right. White play here. White could play, if I give you 5 seconds more to pause the video. Okay, white could play bishop takes f6, and then the point is rook takes f6 when the king is in mortal danger. This would cut the king's escape squares, and queen g7 mate is a big threat. And this is that queen d7 is rather desperate to give d8 on queen g7, but this is absolutely murderous anyway. For example, like this, white's just crushing it. So we see actually king h7, not king g7, but now bishop takes f6 anyway, bishop b7, and now bishop e5. Amazing move, ignoring the threat to the knight. The point is rook f7 will be crushing, with maybe rook g7 if king g6. So king g6 is played. This looks awkward, but is black actually defending just in time the key squares here? The king is stopping, it seems, an invasion to f7. If black had played b takes c3, then rook f7 check, and here is mate. And if the king had stepped back here to g8, then rook g7 check, queen f3, and this is mating. So after king g6, there's an absolute killer blow in this position. And to be honest, I was struggling with it, the complexities of it. There's something uncomfortable about this whole little combination to me, as though didn't black have that many options? Were white's moves optimal? But yes, I checked it with the top engine technology, Fischer, and this move does seem absolutely incisive. It's the most incisive move going. I wonder, I'll give you time to analyze it yourself, the ramifications, the implications. So white's play here, what do you think is the most crushing move possible? I'll give you 5 seconds now to pause the video for as long as you want. It's a real knockout blow killer tactic. It's a quiet killer, rook f7. Amazing stuff. It does threaten rook g7, the mate in one. One should always be on the lookout for those forcing moves which threaten mate, or mate in 2, or mate in 3. They often limit the opponent's replies significantly. And yes, this really ends the game. Black actually resigned. So if rook g8, just here is crushing, and if the knight is taken, rook f6, rook 1 to f6, rook takes, and then this is just mating. It doesn't matter if the king goes to g7 or h7, that will be mating. So that's just one example. If the king takes, critical test. There's an intriguing move here which causes me some uncomfort, because it's not a wham, it's not a bang, smash, crash style move. Can you guess what white simply plays in this position and why? It's interesting. A little clue for you, this diagonal is more sensitive than usual because there's no escape back. So in a way, the fool's mate pattern is kind of relevant for understanding of this position, because the killer move will be queen takes h6, and it's really, this diagonal is really dangerous right now. If rook f1 check, the king would actually, pardon me, if that had not been played, if instead rook f1 check had been played, the king would just step back to g6, and it's not that convincing. For example, knight d5 you might think is an interesting tactical idea, but bishop g5, and now where is white's attack? After queen d3, rook f8, that's end of game for white. So white must use this opportunity of playing queen takes h6. It's this diagonal which seems key, along with the f file. And what does black do? If rook g8 check on that diagonal causes a pretty nasty pin and stopping the king escape, scurry back anywhere. If rook g6, then even though the king does scurry back now, it's with a huge loss of material and ending brutally. So yeah, this seems to be a key, tactical move, and one which, congratulations if you found, especially in conjunction with queen takes h6. It just shows these quiet killer moves that take away escape squares or go on to kind of fool's mate painful diagonals. This diagonal, I mean, who would have thought this diagonal is so significant as well after queen takes h6? So this is one of the more advanced tactical examples I've given. I've got a new course, by the way, at Udemy. You might want to check out kingscrusher.tv/chess tactics. Just about point to it there. kingscrusher.tv/chess tactics. I'll put that in a pinned comment and the description of this video if you want to check out that link. I put a big voucher code discount on it for the next 5 days. It's at the lowest price possible. It's over 21 hours of video content. So hundreds of tactical examples. I go into the whole philosophy I use of chess tactics recently, which I really enjoy my games tactically recently. Even last night I got a 2600 plus performance in the daily Super Blitz at Lee Chess, beating a GM twice in the process. He did berserk though, but it was 2600 plus, and my tactics from the training I've actually done as well myself in this course, I feel quite strong tactically at the moment. Although I'm just human, I'll probably still blunder pieces, tomorrow. I'm just human. I'm not saying I'm a supercomputer or anything. Computers will always be better than us tactically. They don't tire. They don't get emotional. They don't play rash moves. But yeah, I think I'm trying to make up for the fragilities of humans generally in this course, because I talk about the priorities, prioritization of forcing moves, what to look out for when calculating step by step each half move, ply. Look out for the weakness of the last move, the killer common squares, the emerging, the discoveries around the position, to look at the whole board, every move. A pawn could open up bishops and rooks. I go into the whole mechanics, the philosophy, and even try and develop the eye for where a combination would exist or not, based on the downsides that might exist in the opponent's position. What I like to call the downsides. And I've explained why, the whole rationale behind the whole lot. And also, I've even gone further than the tactical unification theory video, which you might have remembered on YouTube. I had in-depth discussions philosophically with my brother about this, and he came up with this concept of the differential, which I've also mentioned, where you look at your forcing moves and they contribute to understanding the strengths of your position, and you want to understand the weaknesses of the opponent's position. It's that differential which sparks amazing combinations. So they could have a negative in, say, a back row weakness. You could have positives in being able to force checks, and they come together. That differential, instead of being 0-0 or -2-0, we're talking about +2 and -2, -4, maximizing the differential. I've talked about all of this, even philosophy, at a high level of abstraction in this course. So I hope you do check that out, kingscrusher.tv/chess tactics. And I want to go over games in the next few days. I mean, because tactics is a passion within a passion for me. I'm going to go over games like this, which maybe I found tricky or sometimes easier, but which have maybe some aesthetic pleasure as well, just seeing combinations. But this one was more of the tricky side. I really was slightly uncomfortable with the quiet moves here. There's maybe, a concern you're not forcing enough, and this example shows, sometimes you don't need to be entirely forcing to finish off an opponent tactically. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and check out the new course. Comments, questions, like, share, subscribe. Appreciate it. And, okay. And I wish I had a trivia question. Who's your favourite chess player right now to follow, apart from Magnus Carlsen? Who's your second best favourite just not Magnus Carlsen, assuming that's most people's favourite player at the moment. But apart from the current World Chess Champion, who's your favourite chess player? Okay, thanks very much.